I just went for a normal clinic, they did the scan, and they told me there's no heartbeat.
What emotions were running through you?
To some degree, I almost blamed God. I was like, why are you letting this happen?
I'm still not able to attend a baby shower. Well, I could hold a baby because that's something that I want for myself in future. But baby showers, I'm like, I don't see the point of celebrating a baby that's not here yet.
Hello, I am Tamima and this is Real Talk Roundtable. Today on the show, we'll be shining a light on a very important issue, pregnancy loss. This is an issue that a lot of families in our country are dealing with, and unfortunately, most of us are just not equipped on how to lend our help and actually support these families through what can be the most tragic and painful experience of anyone's life. Well, joining me on the roundtable today, I have a couple, David Wanjala and Elizabeth Onyango, who will be sharing with us how they were able to get through their pregnancy loss. Welcome to the roundtable, David and Elizabeth. And Kwanzaa, I have to applaud you because I kind of feel like it's very important to have more people coming out and actually just sharing about this issue. And we know famously that a media personality, Willis Raburu, and his wife have actually gone through this recently, and of course our hearts really do go out to them. But at the same time, we have to commend them because a lot of people actually do suffer in silence because it can be very isolating. So probably, Elizabeth, do tell me about your pregnancy loss.
I don't know where to start. So this was my second pregnancy, and by the time I was going to the hospital, it was already 6 weeks. So unfortunately, we didn't take immediate measure because the first pregnancy, I also learned about it at the 6th week, and we took immediate measure. But with my second one, it took a bit of time. I think we delayed for 3 days. Yes.
Was your first pregnancy a complicated, high-risk
Yes,
pregnancy?
it was a very high-risk pregnancy because of the fibroids. I have fibroids. They were like 6 with my first pregnancy. And with the second one, we didn't get a chance to see how many fibroids I had. But my baby died at the end of that week when I got to know that I was pregnant.
So you're literally dealing with two sets of news. You're pregnant and you've lost the baby
And
all
I've
at
lost
the same
the baby,
time.
yes. So it was a very confusing week because when we were about to go to see the doctor so that we take the intervention, that's when I started bleeding on a Saturday, and that was it. That's how I lost my son.
So probably now, and I'm sure for a lot of women this will be very educating, what prompted you now to go to the doctor's office? Because there must have been a reason why you felt that either my body is not normal, I have to go seek medical advice.
Or before knowing that I was
before
pregnant.
knowing that you're pregnant.
The reason I was going, I was having some pain in my stomach, and I thought it was the fibroid, and I thought this must be a big problem because they're paining. They've never pained before. So when I went, the radiologist told me that you're pregnant. You're actually 6 weeks pregnant. And then I asked about the fibroids, and she said, yes, you have the fibroids, but the baby is also in there. Yes.
And probably for you, David, at what point did you now find out, this double news that you're pregnant and unfortunately she's lost a baby as well?
For almost a week or so, she had been complaining of some slight stomach pains. So what happens is that when you're told and you're the husband, you make arrangements to take her to the hospital. So the first thing we wanted to check is what is happening to those fibroids, because I already knew she had them. So I took her to a hospital and they did a scan. Okay, I am used to seeing ultrasounds and I am able to tell a baby in an ultrasound. So I went with her into the radiology room. I was able to see now this is a baby. And even before the radiologist told us there's a baby, I could see it, I could tell. And I asked her, is that a baby? The radiologist told me, yeah, there's a baby. How old is the baby? And we started having a discussion with the radiologist. It is around 6 weeks old and so on and so forth. And it was okay initially because the baby had a heartbeat. Although we had gone to check the fibroids, we were able to detect a baby in there. So at that moment, there was not really a big issue because the baby was there, it was alive, but the fibroids were there, choking out the baby. So we knew what we needed to do, but unfortunately, we didn't do it fast enough. So that is where the issue is.
At what point now did the doctor tell you that with no doubt, you this baby will unfortunately not see it to term.
Okay, what happened is that after we knew there was a baby, I didn't feel very comfortable with the first radiologist. And that hospital we went to, it's not the hospital I wanted my wife to go through and actually deliver in. So I have a doctor friend of mine I've known for over 10 years. I chose that we should go see that doctor for her management because I knew her pregnancies are high risk. So what we did, I organized myself. You know, now there are financial issues that come in there. And I knew this is a walk, it's a marathon of around 9 months. I had started preparing myself psychologically.
That's another issue, that sometimes seeking maternal health care can be expensive.
It is. Gynecology is
expensive.
very expensive for anyone who goes through the same. So I said, let's go to this doctor friend of mine. And we said before the management is done, another ultrasound has to be taken. The doctor looked at it and said, it's okay, the heartbeat is written and everything, but I want to know exactly the position of the baby in relation to the fibroids. Because you see, these fibroids were the ones that were choking up the baby, so that we know if there are chances of survival and so on and so forth. Unfortunately, when now after around 3 or 4 days, the ultrasound was retaken under the normal circumstances over the tummy, the heartbeat was not detected.
So in a matter of days, literally.
Yes. You can imagine I'm planning to be a father of 2. Now I'm starting to doubt if I will have the second kid. Now, the doctor said over the tummy, he can't detect the heartbeat. So he had to use the other end to be able to detect if there's a heartbeat and not. And unfortunately, it wasn't there.
And people would assume that it's just the women who feel it. But you said, and I love how you put it, I was just preparing to be a father to a second child. And then bam, out of nowhere, we've lost the baby.
One thing that is major about that boy we had named Michael, because we knew it was a boy anyway, one thing major about it is that our marriage was in a transition. And we were graduating from a point of drama and issues into now a bit of stability. We were trying to rebuild it into something better, into a hope that we had in each other when we started all along.
So that baby was very symbolic.
It was it was going to be
yeah.
very symbolic for both of us. And I remember that morning at around 5:30, we were actually planning to graduate. We had gone through a marriage counseling class and things like that to rebuild our marriage, to work hard towards making each other better for one another. And in 2 days' time, we were going to graduate. Now you can imagine, I am realizing at 5:20 in the morning that she's miscarrying. Because the miscarriage process starts. When it starts, you can stop it.
Absolutely.
She started feeling the cramps. Now, she wasn't staining before. She started staining. And you know, that is bad news.
And for most couples, you know when that is happening.
Yes.
And I'm sure for you with the underlying issue, with the fibroids, it just made it all that much more, painful. Because you know, that there's something happening here.
And I lied to myself that it might be the fibroids bleeding, really. That's what I prayed for, that's what I hoped for.
Because no parent ever wants to think that I'm losing my child.
Exactly.
Yes, that's true.
So what I told her, because we were going to graduate that day, let us go do the graduation. And she was in pain all through the graduation process. Then after that, you see, again, it came at the wrong time of the month. You see, now the salaries had not come in, so there are no funds to do some of these things.
And just to put this into perspective, because when you're talking about a 6-week pregnancy, for a lot of people they might be like, si kubwa, ndo imeanza tu. So it shouldn't be that much of a big deal, that it shouldn't hurt. But I'm sure for you as a woman, because he's talking about now, you found out that you've lost a pregnancy and your body has to go through a physical evacuation, which comes with its own pain and challenges. So you're dealing with physical challenges, you're dealing with emotional challenges. So probably as a woman in that moment, because I know we've seen this in the blogs, because you saw Willis's wife, Mary Prude, you know, she questioned her faith.
She did.
You know, she was angry with God. So as a woman, what was running through you, Elizabeth?
Like Mrs. Raburu, at that point you start questioning God. Are you really, really there? Why did you let this happen? But you know, as time goes by, you get to understand why it happened. Like you were saying, when you went to the doctor, when the doctor started explaining what was happening, he said that the fetus had attached itself to the wall next to the fibroid. So the chances of that baby surviving was nil. But you know, for us, the baby was very symbolic, and we wanted it to survive at any cost. But unfortunately, it happened because it had to happen, unfortunately. And it's just confusing, it's sad, it's just all these negative emotions that go through a woman. And at that point, you've already bonded with this baby, you know this baby is coming. Actually, it's supposed to be 2 weeks now, it's supposed to be 2 weeks old. But unfortunately, things happened. Yeah, it was a very sad moment, but we soldiered on. I think the talking, the going out there, talking helped me deal with the negative emotions I was going through.
I can tell that between the two of you, you have open lines of communication. This is something that you've dealt with together.
Yes.
So it's not just her burden to carry.
No.
And maybe in the context of marriage, because it is a trying time for you as an individual, but in the context of also marriage, having come from a difficult period in your marriage, so how would you advise couples to handle this?
I would advise them to handle it together. You know, in most marriages, most men actually walk out, and I'd expected him to walk out because, you know, it was a transition. We had come from a lot of drama. We had a lot of drama in our marriage, and then all of a sudden, we lose our baby. You know,
why do you feel as a woman that when that is happening, it's almost natural to expect the man to walk out? Why do you think that is?
Because they blame us. They feel like we're the ones who killed the baby. You know, they don't, unless
It's
you
your
know
body.
the underlying,
There's something wrong with you.
It's me who are the problem. Unless they know why this baby died. But you know, most men don't come from that angle of knowledge. So most men would be like, who you? You know, she's always miscarrying. What's wrong with her? Let me go and look for another lady and, you know, give birth.
And so
get a baby.
How are you able to sort of like make her feel comfortable? Because that was a fear she had. But looking at the both of you now, it's clearly something that you have gotten past.
The first thing is that I thank my God and I thank my parents, because the upbringing I had was a very strong Christian background. And when you talk about for better or for worse, you really mean every word, every essence of it. Friends sometimes who tell you, why can't you just get another girl? There are many simple girls. Easy,
and there are those friends
who
in
actually,
our culture.
who can actually, there are other girls who can actually give you a baby as fast as possible without many complications and things like that. But you would think there's a reason that this woman is in your life. There's a reason why you loved her and not anyone else. And again, when you vow to God that you're going to live with her for better and for worse, you're going to go through it with her. Because I assumed, supposingly, I was the one with the problems.
You're both parents. It's not just the woman's pain to bear. And I really love how you've put it. You are there for your wife, but at some point you also have to deal with your emotions. Yeah. And I'm sure in a way, because now she's stronger, she's going to be able to help you now process through everything that happened. And I'm very curious, because for a lot of couples, once you go through pregnancy loss, it makes it, you either have couples who immediately want to go back and try, and then for some, and especially like in Elizabeth's case, when you have an underlying issue, you become fearful.
Yes, we are
fearful. Do you have fear now when it comes to just the thought of getting pregnant again?
Yes, we have the same fear, because we are wondering, are we going to go through the same process? Because our firstborn rather, we went through the same process. The same underlying issue, we had to deal with the same thing. And I remember the 4th month, the doctor that I was dealing with told me it's between now and the time you give birth, it's between you and God. So every time I get pregnant, or the fear of getting pregnant, I'm like, am I going to go through the same emotional problems, same emotional roller coaster, being told it is between you, the baby, and God. So there's a lot of fear going on in me. But we want to try because we believe there's hope. There's always hope. And I'm sure if we get a baby this time, they'll survive.
And I absolutely wish you the best.
They will survive, thank you.
Because I can see that it's something that you're really yearning for.
Yes, yeah, it's good. The firstborn, it's someone
companionship. And I'm sure even in our culture, there is a lot of pressure. Now, remember, today we are just trying to highlight the issue that is pregnancy loss. Please get to me via the hashtag Real Talk with Tammy, and of course via our SMS line. Let me know what your questions, feedback are on today's topic. But right now it's time for a very quick break. Still more to come. Don't go too far. Welcome back to the Roundtable. Now, our conversation on pregnancy loss continues. Today, we are shining a light on this very important issue. Earlier on, you heard from a married couple about how they were able to deal with this particular issue. Joining me right now on the Roundtable is a group of young women who each have experienced pregnancy loss, and they'll be letting us know what that experience was like, and of course, how they were able to deal with the grief and be able to get past that. So, on my immediate right, I have with me Anne Muthoni. Anne, welcome to the Roundtable. I also have with me Violet Namugaya.
Thank you.
And then I also have with me Gakenya Kezia. So welcome to the Roundtable. Let's wrap this table first. And I just want to put it out there to you guys, you know, like we wrap this table so much, so for some reason it's warping. So kama kuna mtu ni fundi huko, eh? Yeah, hit a girl up. But anyway, just back to the conversation. So we're talking about pregnancy loss, and looking at all of you here, you're all very young. So this is something that you cannot tell that somebody has lived through or experienced just by looking at them. But regardless, it still remains a very painful experience. So let me start with you, Anne, because you've gone through pregnancy loss multiple times. How many times?
3 times.
3 times.
Yes.
And what about for you, Violet? How many times?
Once.
Once.
Twice.
Twice.
Yes.
So those are just numbers when we are saying it, but I'm pretty sure that in the moments that you were living through it, it must have been horrible. So probably let's start with you, Anne.
My very first loss was my first pregnancy, like my honeymoon baby. So I lost her at 20 weeks. She had a true note. I think she played a lot. She was very active she was looking forward to be born, so she played and she had a true note. So at 20 weeks I lost her. I just went for a normal clinic, they did a scan, and they told me there's no heartbeat. For me that one was quite horrible because of the medical people really mishandled me. What I remember most is they just showed me the baby after I delivered, and they threw her at a dustbin. So that really, it's what made me suffer most than actually
So it was a trauma of seeing this person that you loved.
Yes.
Because to you, your baby is a person.
Yeah.
And then they're going into a dustbin.
Yes.
Yeah.
He just said this was a girl. Can you see? Okay. So he just threw her in that dustbin. Then my second pregnancy, I have the girl. She's 3 years. Then I really love children. I wanted 7. So I tried again. The third pregnancy, I got a boy, but he had complications at 24 weeks. The doctor advised that maybe we could terminate the pregnancy at 32 weeks, but we preferred with my husband to go all the way. We trusted God.
Was there a specific complication that led to that medical recommendation about termination?
Yes, like the head and the heart. I don't know the medical terminologies, but I know the head was quite bigger than normal, and the heart had an issue. So the blood was flowing to the head abnormally. So the head appeared like it was bigger than normal, and then that made the brain not also develop. So the baby did not develop fully. So I carried the baby to 40 weeks. I delivered the baby. He cried a little, and then he passed on. Then the third one was a 7 weeks pregnancy. It was a miscarriage. Yeah, I just bled, and that was it.
So probably, I'm going to come back to you. Let's hear first from Violet, because you've undergone a miscarriage. So probably tell us about your experience.
Well, the experience was horrible. It's not the perfect word to describe it, but it was horrible and painful. This pregnancy was special. It was a multiple pregnancy. I was expecting triplets, all boys. But as I was crossing over to the 12 weeks, I fell in the bathroom as I was cleaning, and bam, I'm bleeding. And I'm in pain. And little did I know, the doctors couldn't do anything about it. So I ended up losing the baby.
So you went to the hospital immediately after your accident?
Yes, I did.
And then getting to the hospital, the doctor tells you that it's too late.
We can't do anything about it. And Makiu, this was a pregnancy I really, really looked forward to.
Your first pregnancy?
No. That was my third pregnancy. So I have a 12-year-old daughter in class 7. and a 6-year-old who just joined class 1. They give me so much joy. But at the end of the day, as a parent, all your children are your children. It doesn't matter how many you have or how many you've lost. One loss is a loss enough to kill you. Like, I remember I almost lost my mind. Literally, I almost went crazy because of this pregnancy that I lost.
And I can imagine for you it was compounded because it's one pregnancy, but it's three babies.
3 babies,
Oh,
yes. Yeah, so... And then I didn't have someone to go through the grief with. I was alone. No, like friends. Yeah, some friends have gone through miscarriage, but the best they could manage was, don't worry, you're still young. You can have other babies. What if I never have those babies? What if I die tomorrow? You know, don't tell me anything. Let me cry. Let me shout. Let me roll. Whatever I want to do, let me just do it to get over.
So allow you to be angry.
Just
to feel
allow
it.
me to feel my loss,
Yeah.
so that I can be better now for me and my babies. Because what I've realized is people think about the children you have and they keep on telling you to be strong for the children. Who will be strong for you? Yeah, so that's the biggest question I had. No one had an answer for me. And then,
Because you were grieving.
Yes.
You had just lost 3 babies. And I'm pretty sure you loved the 2 babies that you already had,
To
but
death.
it didn't make your love for the ones you lost any less.
true.
So having people trying to, and I kind of feel like when I read up on this topic when I was doing my research for this, that really shone through. A lot of women felt that just because I had living children, I felt like the world didn't allow me to grieve for the ones I had lost.
True.
It was almost like I was being disrespectful.
And ungrateful. Precisely ungrateful, because they keep on, like, you are told over and over again, at least you have this one, at least you have these ones.
Like it should make the pain less.
It should,
you know?
yeah. And I remember telling one of them, you know what, you have someone to hold you as you're crying, you have someone to cry with you. I don't have that.
You were a single parent at that point?
Yes, I was left. So I remember calling up a friend. She went through PPD and I asked her, is this PPD? She told me no, but
That's
you need
postpartum depression.
She told me no, but you need to see a counselor.
It was grief.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Let's hear from you, Kenya.
Well, for me, I've had 2 miscarriages. The very first one, I think I realized I was pregnant at around 2 weeks, quite early. So I started my clinic almost immediately. Then when I went for the very first clinic, something was wrong with my lab reports, but the nurses didn't quite recognize what was going on. So a few days later, I was bleeding, so I went to see the doctor, and the doctor said I have a PID, that is pelvic inflammatory disease. So he treated it and didn't stop bleeding, so I had to get an MVA. So that was the very first one. And
MVA being?
it was a manual and evacuation, where they have to extract whatever is remaining if you've not had a complete miscarriage. So for the second one, I also realized early enough when I was pregnant, and I started my prenatal, so to speak. So this particular day, I remember I was going home to see my parents, and suddenly I saw dried blood. And for me, I knew this is trouble. So I went to the hospital, I did an ultrasound, and they told me that the baby had actually stopped growing at 8 weeks and died. So I was at 12 weeks, but the scan was reading 8 weeks. So now they had to induce labor and then do another MVA again. Yeah.
So literally the time between your last visit
Yeah.
and your next visit,
Yeah.
you had lost your baby.
Yes.
And again had to go through the process.
Yes.
And you know, you say the word MVA, and
Yeah.
in full, it's the acronym for...
I'm not very sure, but I know it's manual vacuum something. But I know it's mostly they use it for abortions, especially for women who go for this abortions where they have to remove whatever is remaining. But when you have a miscarriage and it's incomplete, as they call it, they have to clean you up. And you have to be awake for the procedure, which is
a
very
painful procedure.
It is terrible, terrible.
And probably now, going back to Anne, because you've gone through it 3 times, and do you feel like, because I love how Violet put it, she felt that her support system didn't necessarily know how to help her grief. Do you feel like throughout all your pregnancy losses, you had an adequate support system?
I'd say yes. I had few people who were very there, like my husband, who is a medical person, so he's aware of what happened. So he really supported me and my parents and the church. The bit that I would say they may not know, like when I went to counseling to Still a Mom, I got to know what you should say to a grieving mom and what not to say.
In our culture, because we come from different communities with different cultural practices, and you're dealing with someone who's grieving, and everyone here seems very well educated, eh?
Yeah.
So it's funny that you're saying at some point you almost half believed this, explanations that different people are giving, like, guys, we need to stop. Because when somebody's grieving, you're very vulnerable. Your state of mind is very vulnerable. So you don't want to make that person feel like, because either your great-grandmother or your uncle or, somebody forgot to do something, like, it's not fair.
Yeah.
And that is really why we are having this conversation, because a lot of actually pregnancy losses, they cannot be explained medically.
Yeah.
The people who are lucky to get an explanation are lucky, but for most women, they have to live with the fact that nobody could explain it to me. All I knew was I was pregnant, and then I wasn't.
Yeah.
So probably what else should people not say?
Maybe I can start with what to say.
What to say?
Yeah, like say, I'm sorry for your pain. Acknowledge. If the person is crying, you can maybe hug them. Just be silent. Allow them to talk. And if they want to cry, don't tell them to stop. Maybe if they're in the hospital, you can run errands for them. If the baby has passed on, maybe they need to be taken to the mortuary. All those details. Carry their basins, their bags. Just be there and listen.
You said something very interesting. Like take them to the mortuary, because that's another part that people don't consider. Because you might assume because this child was not born, they don't have to be buried.
Yeah.
But that's something that you have to deal with. So you had to bury all your children.
No. I think it goes now to the couple, what they agree on. Like now the baby that was thrown in the dustbin, at least what I think the medical people should do, they should treat the way they handle that baby and yourself, it will play a great part in your healing. Like handle the baby like a human being. Just I know they will throw the baby because after all she's dead, but
Because to them it's a fetus.
yes,
Fetus, not baby.
human.
yes. So for this mother, for the sake of those parents, handle the baby with care, and the mother, you can even wrap them. You can ask the mother, would you like to hold her for some time? Because I think that would have really helped me the very first time. Other than now seeing my baby, when my husband came, he asked me, where is the baby? I don't know, can you look at her? Just look at her wherever she is in that dustbin.
It was traumatic. That's
Yes.
what it was.
Yeah, so I saw my husband trying to move those, that's in the bin, trying to get the baby. But if that nurse took the baby away, I wouldn't have because I had nightmares after that.
And I can imagine, because even listening to you talk, it's a very graphic image.
Yes.
So you had to live through it. What you're seeing is, it's memory. It's not a visual picture. It's actually something that you live through.
Yes.
And what we are calling for here is just responsibility on any medical practitioner. Did you have a negative experience?
Well, I didn't
During
have
that part?
No, I didn't have a negative experience at the hospital. It's a blessing when you have trained and good medical practitioner handling you. Like Anne is saying, it's dehumanizing when you see your baby being done for that. Because to a mom, even if it's 2 weeks old, 2 days old, and you can feel the heartbeat, you know someone is growing inside you. You want that baby to be treated with dignity. So for me, I just got a good medical practitioner, a good doctor who, explained to me, again, this happened, but you need to take heart and, move on.
What about for you, Kenya?
For me, the very first time was, the doctor was okay. But this second time, since I went to see a different doctor, and the doctor who was handling me during the day had to hand over at night. So I was with a lady doctor because the very first one was a male doctor. And he was quite okay. He told me, just calm down, take your time, think about it. But at the end of the day, I have to admit you and I have to carry out the procedure. But just take your time. So when my labor was induced by this lady and she was hurrying me up, she was like, fanya haraka tumalize, unajua niko na patients wengine wananingoja huko chini.
Oh, wow.
And it's a procedure that is so painful and it's coming from a woman, not a man. Because I'd expect that to come from a man because literally he wouldn't go through that.
I would expect that to come from nobody because if you're working...
if someone if someone was to say something, especially woman to woman, there are things I wouldn't expect you to say. I would sort of expect the man to say because probably he will never go through that. So he does not understand. He doesn't make it right though.
But disclaimer on that, as long as you're a man working within the medical field, you cannot. We do not expect you to behave like that at all.
Yes.
Yeah.
So for this woman actually telling me that, fanya haraka tumalizane na wewe, let me just do 15 rounds on you so that I can go. There are patients waiting and I'm in pain and you don't even care. And then, most of the times they don't, like for miscarriages that are, let's say 12 weeks and below, they don't take the tissue and ask you whether you want those pieces of tissues checked so that you can determine what was wrong with the pregnancy. I feel like it is important to ask the person who's gone through the miscarriage, whether it's the woman or the gentleman. Maybe the woman cannot make the decision at that time.
The
but
father in this instance.
Yeah. So I would rather you ask them instead of just discarding them like it's just takataka, so to speak.
And what I'm basically hearing is that it's just that there are some good medical practitioners out there. But at the same time, I'm sure that what the two of you are talking about, and that is Anne and Gakenya, represent stories and horror stories at that for thousands of women in this country, because we know that our healthcare system is not necessarily the best. And that is why we are having this conversation again, because it's not just enough to say that she lost a baby. And as you're hearing from all the experiences, it's a process. There are different things happening at different times. It's not just an absolute, she lost a baby. There are a lot of things to take into consideration. So back to what we were saying about what not to say and what to say, because we were talking now there to the medical practitioners, like, hey, did you know that these women, whether she's losing a 2-week, a 3-week pregnancy, all she needs is just consideration and care. Ask her.
Like, maybe I can comment on that. The boy who passed on at 40 weeks, Kijabe, these guys treated me so well. I felt like, like a queen. I'm mourning, but at the same time, the way I was treated, they gave me the baby. The baby was wrapped in a very nice shawl. They gave me that gift and a cup. You couldn't tell that the baby had passed on. I stayed with the boy for the whole day. People came. I gave them the baby. I told them the baby came, but he passed on. And they were able to mourn with me. And then later on, the chaplain came, we prayed together, and I told them, I think for me, and together with my husband, we have agreed to release the baby here because they have a way they can do it. So that quickened my healing. I really healed very fast because it was not traumatic. They gave me a very good transition.
And I love hearing that from you because you had the horrible experience the first time.
Yes.
And then now you're coming back and you're telling us that, hey, you know what? You can actually come full circle.
I actually didn't know. The way they treated me, it took me back now to how I was treated the very first pregnancy. I was like, kumbe babies should be treated in a different way. Just because they are dead, you shouldn't handle them like taka. These are real. I had the experience. I healed faster than the way it was. So I felt like an urge to ask all the medical people that I know and all the hospitals that please treat these people well, because when you do that, you will think it's just casual, it's my work, but you have helped that parent to heal faster. You have actually worked with her without your knowledge.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
And probably just to each of you as we wind up, and let me start with you, Gakenya, because today do you have a child?
Yes, I do.
So how old is your child?
He'll be 9 years in September.
9 years old.
Yeah.
And for you, Violet, you already have 2.
Yes, I do.
And for you, Anne?
I have one.
You have
baby,
one.
yes.
So is any of you planning to get pregnant again in future?
My 7 must come.
I love that. So probably talk to families out there and talk to women, each of you in your own words, because what you've described is very traumatic and it's very painful. But at the same time, I love that you're not unbowed. Everyone here says, you know what, I want 7.
Yes.
Lazima in this economy.
Tutawak na wao pamoja.
If there's anybody going through it and they feel like there's no light at the end of the tunnel, because you're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yes.
So how are you able to get that resolve and actually say, mimi nataka 7?
I would say, I would encourage that parent who has gone through else not to lose hope. Where they are right now, it's just to take a day at a time. Don't rush yourself. Like I want to heal so fast, and mourn that baby. You know, the baby was special. Just mourn the baby, and I think speaking out has helped me a lot, and the willingness to help others. I find a parent who has gone through loss, I just want to be there for them. Not basically tell them my story. I will tell them at the right time, but just be there for them and praying for them, because at that moment, God doesn't make sense to this parent. I was at a point I hated God. I thought he failed me because I had a prayer group. We prayed for this boy for a miracle.
Yeah.
And then I didn't get this miracle. So I would tell the person to just hold on. The Bible says that we be like a tree planted by the streams. As long as you are there, God is there. Don't move away. Even if you're not able to pray, just stay there. And God will keep the streams of his word. He will keep streaming. The streams will keep flowing. With time, you may look like you're crumbling right now. But when these streams are coming and coming, one time, you will sprout.
I feel like that's a table rubbing moment. So on that note, we'll be right back after the break. Don't go too far. Welcome back to the Roundtable. Now remember that today we are shining a light on pregnancy laws, and we've had some amazing stories of resilience from the women who've just taken the time to come here today and actually share their stories. And I apologize if some of the stories are graphic, but at the same time, we're here to educate, we're here to actually shine a light and just to raise awareness and to just help you know, how can you support families? How can you support women who are actually living and going through this? So joining me right now, I have Cindy Kadari. She's 27 years old and has no kids yet. However, she has undergone pregnancy loss. And also joining me, just to put this into context, is because by and large, what we're talking about here is grieving. How do you help these families to grieve? How can we be supportive through the grief process? Is Diana Chepkoskei, who is a psychologist specializing in grief bereavement. So welcome to Real Talk. Did I say your name right?
You tried.
I tried. Okay, so back to the topic at hand, and probably let me start with you, Cindy. So how many pregnancy losses have you had to go through?
2.
2. And is it daunting for you that at such a young age you had to literally experience that?
Well, it was. See, the first one I had, I was really young. I was 24, 25. And in fact, I didn't even know I was pregnant at first. I only got to know when I was 9 weeks, because, you know, I was young, still party life, and well, at 9 weeks when I did a test, it came out positive. Well, I thought it was normal to just add weight, to eat fries all the time. Yeah, then I discovered I was pregnant, and 3 weeks later I was having the worst pain of my life. That's what I thought. And the second one, well, that one just disappeared. No one told me why. So it still aches. Yes.
And what about the second time?
At 13 weeks. Well, that one I got pregnant on purpose, because after the first one I thought, now we're going to do this right. I went to hospital, like immediately I found out I was pregnant. I went to clinic and, well, I was set to a healthy pregnancy up until 13 weeks. Again, I was bleeding and I didn't know what to think. I rushed to hospital, I saw a doctor, and doctor told me that I had subchorionic bleeding. Like I just bled, but you know, the fetus is still intact. There was a heartbeat still. So, well, sorry.
Take your time, it's okay.
Yeah, so subchorionic bleeding, I followed it up. I was committed to, you know, I had doctor's number on speed dial. Anything, should anything happen, I could contact. So on my next appointment, like right after subchorionic bleeding, they put me on bed rest. 3 weeks later, I had an appointment. They went and they told me that, you know, the sac is growing. It shows that you're 13 weeks, but there's no heartbeat. I was like, what are you telling me right now? Yeah, you're pregnant, but there's no baby. I didn't understand I didn't know what to make of it. Yeah, so, well, that's that.
And
no
how
one told
were you
me.
able to, you know, cope and grieve? Because I can tell for you that the second time round, that really stung.
Yeah, the second one really stung. Because I thought the first one, you know, I thought I wasn't doing things right.
Yeah.
Right? But the second one, I thought, hey, I'm eating right. I even changed my diet. I'm eating all organic. I'm doing exercise.
And I'm sure coming into the second pregnancy, because of your experience in the first, you were very careful.
Yes, I was very careful.
Yeah.
Well, at the time, I was in a stable relationship, so that really helped.
So you had a supportive partner.
Yes. As well as my family. They were really supportive. Yeah.
And probably now, because Diana, this is what you do for a living, you help people process their grief. And grief comes in different forms, in different ways.
Yeah.
Nobody can ever really schedule grieving.
For sure.
Yeah. So what would you say to, and let me start with the men,
Yeah.
because whether you're in marriage, whether it's a boyfriend, what would you say to the men who are, you know, in this with the women in terms of how to support their partners? And I love how David put it, because he recognized that we are both going through this,
Yeah.
but probably she more than me, because everything is happening in her, in her body.
Yeah.
So I had to be there more for her than for myself.
It's so different when it comes to how men handle grief, because the way women are very expressive, but men try to kind of, they like fixing things. They like going over things and, you know, let's get to the next step. And they don't like talking about their feelings. So what I'll advise men to do, as much as they try to support their wives at that time, they should also know that they're also handling grief. And it's good for them to try to find a support system, to be around, maybe their close male friends, but also even just being able to create that environment with their wives, like, how are you feeling today? Do you feel like we can talk about the baby? How are you coping? How are you handling the loss? And just allowing themselves to vent out those emotions they are going through. I typically tell men that I know for a support group it might not work for them, but going out for a nyama choma with the guys, and you know, you don't have to talk about the grief, but even as much as you're hanging out, it can just pop up like, how are you coping? How are you faring on? That can be a way of how to deal with the grief.
Absolutely. I think about grief because I'm sure in your line of work you recognize that when grief is not dealt with, either at whichever level, some ways, in some form, it'll come out in another area of your life.
For sure, for sure. And that's most common with, you know, when dealing with grief, there are very different kind of emotions and stages that people go through, and anger is one of the most common emotion. And if you keep on suppressing the anger, it will come up in future, and maybe you're at work and you're dealing with we use a typical example with the moms, like maybe the conductor jakupea balance in the matatu and it's 20 shillings, and you can, you know, you blow up and you shout and all of that. That is something that you're dealing with. That is grief. That is a repressed emotion from way back. So it's good just to be aware, what am I feeling? How can I cope? How can I handle all this?
And probably now more, and it applies both ways, both for the fathers and the mothers, because you've just lost a baby. So how do you process seeing other people who are, you know, receiving their bundles of joys, literally? Because I know for some people it can be hard. I've had experiences from friends who've gone through this, and they tell you, I'm sorry, but I just can't be around you and your baby at this time because I'm dealing with something. And you understand that part of being a supportive friend is being conscious of that and allowing them to deal with it in their own way.
It's always a very awkward time when, you know, you're wondering, what can I do to support this person adequately? But what we encourage is your physical presence is key. You don't have to say anything, but just be there and do something. Take the other kids to school, do shopping, do the cooking, but just create that environment that these women or these parents can talk about their emotions.
And I'm curious, maybe from you, Violet, did you go through that whereby perhaps you didn't, at the point where you had just lost your babies, you perhaps didn't just want to be around babies?
Well, it's interesting because one of my sisters was going to get a baby a month before me. So how she received her baby, beautiful baby girl, we love her. I kept on wondering, what if she was in Nairobi like me? Would I have visited her?
So the distance helped?
The distance helped me a lot.
Yeah.
A lot. So by the time I was going to see Janelle is my niece. I actually call her my daughter. By the time I was visiting Janelle and my sister and brother in Eldoret, I had already dealt. Diana had helped a lot because I went through counseling at Stella Mom, and Diana was the one taking us through. So Diana had helped a lot. The distance helped, and I was able to now enjoy Janelle.
What about for you, Cindy? Did you struggle being around other babies afterwards?
Actually, I still struggle.
To date?
Yes. I'm still not able to attend a baby shower. Well, I could hold a baby because that's something that I want for myself in future. But baby showers, I'm like, I don't see the point of celebrating a baby that's not here yet. Because anything can happen. It happened to me, so yeah.
And probably for you, because I'm sure you want to have kids.
Yeah,
But have you done the work and processed through your grief to the point that you recognize that with your next pregnancy, you're going to have some stuff to deal with?
I'm still dealing. I'm still dealing with that.
So for any woman like Cindy, in Cindy's place, because earlier on I had Anya, she's like, I want to have 7, and you know, she's very confident about it. But we all process grief differently, you know, and clearly with her, her grief has marked her in a way, you know. She's very, now I can tell you're very skeptical about it all, So probably how do you help her process it? Because on one hand, she really wants this baby, but on the other hand, there's the fear, which is constantly there, the fear of, and she's put it so well, that what's the point of celebrating this baby? I don't believe it's going to come until I see it.
People process grief in very different ways. Grief is very personal, it's very unique, and I wouldn't say there's an exact time frame for someone to actually heal from it, because it's a new season, it's like a transition, and what you only do, you only learn on how to cope. For her, maybe what I'll advise is just taking that time, allowing yourself to be aware of what am I feeling currently. And it's okay not to attend baby showers until when you're ready. It's okay to have all these fears and concerns, and that's why we bring in the importance of seeking therapy, importance of just coming in and talking to a professional to, you know, to allow you, because you might be stuck. I don't know what I'm feeling, and I really don't know how I'm going to get out of this space. So just being able to I think being vulnerable is of essence, and just what am I going through and how am I going to get out of this? Because we all develop different ways of coping that works for us. But it's okay to have those emotions for now. It's okay to feel horrible because there's no exact time frame, and just don't put pressure on yourself. I need to be okay. I need to be strong. Yeah.
Okay, and probably just as we wind up, because the thing also about grief, and a lot of people might assume that it's just for a period, but as a mother, like, you know, I feel their pain, and I can imagine this is something that for the rest of your life, you know, it's for the rest of your life, you'll always remember that child. So how then do you help? What advice do you give to a woman who then feels like, okay, they've said I'm allowed to grieve, but this grief of mine has like a expiration date, beyond X amount of time, and I'm not allowed to grieve. So, and probably what I'm trying to ask is, are there rules to grieving? Because I know moms will tell you, for the rest of my life, I will forever remember that date. On that date, they'll do something special in their own way. Just remember the child that they lost.
There are no rules to grieving. Like I said, it's very unique and very personal. What works for you might not work for Cindy or Violet. So being able to know, like, how am I coping? Because there are two different ways. We cope in healthy ways, or we cope in unhealthy ways. I can go to the bar and drink my sorrows away, but it won't help. Others can go to church. That's what works for them. But just being able to know, what can I use for now? I usually use a very common acronym of TEARS. Like, T is talking about your emotions. E is exercising, physically releasing those difficult emotions, doing something physically just to make your body lighter and to enable you just to have the right hormones to be produced for you to feel better. And A, artistically, just expressing your emotions. Maybe you write about it. Maybe you get to listen to those songs that makes you feel better. And also recording your emotions, journaling, writing about how you feel. And finally, sobbing. Crying is very therapeutic.
We know that. In case there's any mom who wants to reach out to Still a Mom, how can they do that?
They can follow us on Facebook, Still a Mom, or Twitter at Still a Mom Africa, on Instagram at Still a Mom, or I can share my counseling line, which is 0719 629 787.
Okay, so we'll have that information right now as I'm speaking on the bottom of your screen. And I really do hope that with today's episode, we touched somebody out there and we actually shone a light on this issue, and which can be a taboo issue for most families. But as you've heard, it's an experience that, bottom line, emotion, communication, support is how literally you help any woman, any father, any family that is dealing with this issue to get past their grief. And of course, at the end of the day, for anyone who's lost a child, our hearts go out to you. And I like to think with a lot of parents that the analogy that your child is in heaven, there's some comfort in that. Yeah. It doesn't make it any better, but still there's some comfort in that for any parent. Well, that's it from me, Tamima. As always, thank you so much for staying with us. Until next time, this has been the Roundtable, which is whopping because of the rubbing. Oh wow.
Special thanks to E+ for medic and ambulance services.